Hello all, my name is Mahesh and welcome to this video. So in this session we are going to see a really interesting deep learning project, and the project name would be SafeGuard Vision Industrial Worker Safety System. So the main intention of this project is we need to develop an safety system for the industrial workers. So we will be working on the shredder machines. So what is this shredder machine? So you can see I'm having two images here. So these are nothing but the shredder machines. Fine. So what is the specialty of this shredder machine? So this machine will be disposing the waste. So what kind of waste? It can dispose like metallic waste, plastic waste. It can dispose like heavy objects. Fine. So when it comes to this industry, there is a high risk of happening accidents. Suppose if a worker is working on the machine, if he is just leaving his hand to the machine, so we'll be raising an alarm mechanism and will be shutting down the machine automatically in order to prevent the accidents. So that is what the main intention of this project. Fine. So how can we achieve these things? So what we do, we'll be using the computer vision like deep learning model. So we need to detect the hands, first of all, the palms of a person. Fine. So definitely we'll be having a requirement for this project, since it is a real-time industry or real-time project which will be deployed in the industry. So we'll be having two kind of requirements, that is hardware requirement as well as software requirement. So let me just write the hardware requirements, what and all things it is required. So hardware requirements as well as software requirements. So when it comes to hardware requirements, right, we'll be definitely be needing a camera, especially what kind of camera we required, an IP camera. So why IP camera? Why? Because we can connect to this IP camera to the internet, and again we'll be getting high resolution images or video. So that is the reason we'll be using this IP camera. Next, again we'll be having an microcontrollers, which is a very important component. Next, we'll be having some device, something called as Raspberry Pi. So definitely you would have heard about this device. So what is this Raspberry Pi? So Raspberry Pi, you can just imagine it as a small computer. So what and all things you can just do in a computer, no? Since we cannot take a laptop or system and keep it in the industry. So what we do, we are having an option. We can just buy a Raspberry Pi. We can program. We can just feed the Python program to it, and it can do the things, what and all things which can be done by the laptop. So that is the reason we'll be using Raspberry Pi. And again we'll be having like routers. So it is not a Wi-Fi router, so it is nothing but a cable management system. Okay, so suppose since we are using like CCTV camera, huge amount of CCTV camera, so what happens, you'll be having like a huge amount of wire. In order to manage that wire, what we'll do, we'll be using this routers in order to route the specific camera to the DVR. Okay, so again we'll be having something called as DVR. So definitely, if in case if you're having an CCTV camera installed in your home, what happens, you'll be using a DVR. So what is this DVR? DVR is a device which is used to store the video captured by the CCTV, and it will be having some hard drive or some storage system, and you can just retrieve the data from the DVR. So a lot of things you can do. And then we'll be using something called as relay switch. Fine. So next, so what about the software requirements? So definitely you'll be having an programming language. So we'll be using Python here. And then, so since this is a deep learning project, so what happens? We'll be using and deep learning model, something called as SSD mobile mobile net. Okay. Fine. So next what we do, we can just tell that we'll be using OpenCV for capturing the image. So these are the basic requirement for the software, and again we'll be having different type of modules which is required for this project. Fine. I'll just show you an image of so the end product of a project. Just a minute. So this is what it looks when it comes to the production. So we'll be installing the cameras on top of each and every shredder machine. So if a worker is working here, right, so what happens, there is a high chance that he might be getting distracted, as well as the hands might be getting damaged. So in order to avoid that, what we'll do, first we'll just create two lines. So first one is the safety border. So this is nothing but the machine border. So whenever this worker is entering this line, right, so see, you can, as you can see here, the hands has been detected. So if it is reaching here, right, so what happens, an alarm message is triggered. Fine. So when it comes to this thing, and again if his hand is reaching this line, what happens, automatically the machine is getting shut down. Why? Because in order to avoid the accident. Fine. So now let us just see how it is working. Fine. So assume that so this is a relay switch. Okay. Fine. So assume this AC motor, your shredder machine, as well as this is your microcontroller, and you'll be having a Raspberry Pi somewhere installed. Okay, somewhere here. So this Raspberry Pi or your application is generating two things. What? 1 as well as 0. So when it comes to 1, right, 1 indicates that everything is fine. No, when it comes to 0, indicates everything is fine. 1 indicates something is wrong. So here, so usually what happens, this microcontroller will be getting 0. So if we just see, so if I'm just keeping my hand here, right, so till this border, what happens, so our system will be generating zeros. So then what happened, this shredder machine will be keep on running. Fine. So if you just see here, it will be keep on running. Okay, it will keep on running. Why? Because there is nothing bad is happening. Suppose, just imagine if a worker is crossing this border, first border, that is blue line, what happens, an alarm is triggered. Fine. So then the machine is still running. So it is, the alarm is nothing but it is indicating to the worker, so just take off the hands. Fine. So be careful, something like that. So if in case, if a worker is still passing the hands, no, at that point of time, if his hand is passing through this line, what happens, so I'll be getting a message something like 1. So what is indicating? It is indicating something like so switch off the machine. So what happens, so this machine is sending 1. So here what happens, so till now it was generating 0. So when the program or application is generating 1, what happens, it is sent to here and it will be shutting on this. Means your shredder machine is shut down. Okay, it is switched off. So this is what the basic or some complex mechanism how it is working. Fine. So next, so let us see the project architecture. So as you can see, this is the architecture of the project. So the first thing, no, we'll be starting this thing. So whenever you're trying to develop any kind of project, no, very first thing is the architecture of the project, or maybe the control flow of the application. So you can just think this is a control flow. Fine. So control flow of the application. So very first thing, as I told, will be gathering the requirements from the client. So that is we might be understanding the problem situation, means what kind of problem you are trying to solve, and what all things it is required in order to solve that problem. So those things. And again, so tech stack, when it comes to tech stack selection, what happens, since we are doing some data science project, no, we need to select, so whether is it possible for us to solve with the help of machine learning algorithm or deep learning, or required anything apart from it. So all those things will be discussed in the tech stack selection, maybe when it comes to this deep learning model, or what kind of libraries we'll be using. Fine, all those things. And very important thing is data collection. So here, since we'll be getting data from a CCTV camera, fine, so we have to just convert the video into pictures, means frames. So that is nothing but the data collection part. Fine. So next is data preparation. So when it comes to data preparation, as I told previously, since we'll be getting the video, right, we have to convert that into frames. Fine. Like since we have done this project, right, so just imagine we'll be getting like just 10 minutes of video, 1 hour of video, we might be getting like thousands of pictures, okay, from that 10 to 20 minutes of video. So everything depends upon the frame rate. And the most important part is data augmentation part. Why? Because data augmentation is a very important step when it comes to any deep learning project. Then data annotation. So this data annotation part also requires huge amount of human effort. So everything we have did manually, okay. And since we are doing this TF-IODF, so we have to just convert the CSV file into XML and generate the TF records. And then we'll be doing the model training part. And again, same thing, since we're using the TF-IDF, so we'll be getting the graph, inference graph, and then environmental setup. So then the application development, when it comes to here, since we'll be using the OpenCV, it acts like a endpoint to the application, and the configuration with respect to that, and starting the application. So here what happens, the model training part is done. Training part is done. Next is nothing but the prediction part. So prediction part in the sense, like, since we'll be getting the live feed from the camera, so what we do, we'll be taking the live feed, then we'll just capture the frames from the live feed, then we'll be giving this as an input to the model. Then what happens, it will be taken and we'll be doing the prediction part. Very first thing what we do, we just detect the palms. Then once the palm is detected, then we'll just check whether the palm is within the range or it is crossing the border, okay. And if the palm is crossing the border, so we should be able to hear an alert message. Fine. If in case if it is crossing the blue line, that is a system. If a person is entering his hand to the machine, what happens, the system should be getting shut down. Fine. And once we just done all these things, if it is working successfully, what happens, we'll be getting the log records. And then the last thing. Fine. So next we are going to see the code implementation part. Fine. Okay, so I hope you are able to see my pie chart. So this is a folder structure of this project. So we'll be using the trained model. So we'll not be doing the training part here. Why? Because it required a huge amount of time. Fine. So we'll be using the trained model in this project. Fine. So the entry point is the same thing. First of all, I'll just show you the requirements. So these are the requirements for this project. You can see you'll be using like a huge amount of libraries, and this is the entry point of our application. So first of all, we'll be doing the importing part. So we'll be importing the utilities from the utilities folder, that is the functions, utility functions. Next, so the very important thing, no, so what we'll do is, we'll be initializing the camera, then we'll be taking the live feed. Okay, so for that we'll be using the CV2, open CV2. Then again we'll be creating some lines, means we'll be doing this all these things manually. So we'll be writing the logic from scratch. Fine. So next part. So when it comes to here, mm, so the very first thing what we do, we'll just enter the threshold, means the confidence rate. So what is this confidence threshold? So you'll be drawing a box. So in case your camera is able to detect and it is getting the confidence rate of 80 percentage. Fine. And so this line is nothing but it is capturing the video or streaming the video, live video. And this is nothing but the orientation. So what type of orientation? We have mentioned BT, means bottom to top. You can just change this orientation to left to right, right to left, top to bottom, anything according to the requirement. And then we can just change um, the percent of screen. For example, I might be getting a video from a CCTV camera. I can just change how much percentage I can zoom it. So all those things we can just do it. Fine. Then next, so this is nothing but this is nothing for the machine line, as well as this is nothing for the safety line. So when it comes to the diagram part, this is for the red line, this is for the blue line. Okay, and we have to just give the number of hands to detect. So usually a person will be having only 2 hands, so we'll be giving number of hands is equal to 2. Then what we do, we just calculate the time taken. We'll be calculating the frames, average frame taken from this entire one session, that is one video. So we'll be starting the time in order to calculate and number of frames. And then so we'll be initializing a window in the OpenCV. We'll be giving the name called as detection. And so here in this function, what we are trying to do, we are trying to count the number of times, so where the hand is been detected. So how many times your machine is able to detect your hand. So that is we are counting here. Fine. So again this thing, okay. So after this, no, what happens, I'll just take the live feed from the camera. I'll be converting into, so since we are trying to do the object detection, no, it is not required for us to convert into grayscale. We can just do it directly as well. Okay. So here the reason why we are converting into RGB, because whenever you're trying to capture an image from the OpenCV, so what happens, it will be like blue, green, red. So we have to convert into RGB. So that is the reason we'll be converting here. Okay. Then we'll be detecting the objects. So I'll just showcase here. So this is a function which is used for the object detection. So first of all, let me explain what is this frozen graphs. So frozen graph folder is nothing but it is your model. It is your deep learning model. Fine. So here, so the reason why we are giving it as a name called as frozen graphs, because so since it is a neural networks, whenever you are trying to train this model or trying to do the prediction part, no, the weights and bias should not be changed. So that is the reason it should be freezed. Fine. And I told that we'll be using the SSD model. You can see we are loading that SSD model. Fine. And then what we are trying to do, we are trying to load the inference from the graph. That is graph is nothing but your model itself. Okay. Fine. So those things can be done with the help of this function. So as you can see here, I'm having a function called as draw text on images. So this function is nothing but it is displaying something. For example, if I'm drawing a boundary for on my palms, what happens, it should be displaying the confidence rate. So what is the confidence rate of the palm? It has been detected. So it will be done by this function. Then again we'll be having some function called as distance to camera, so you can just uh, fix the distance. We can just mention it explicitly as well. Next, so as I told, no, while explaining the architecture, if in case if you're having no hand, your function is returning the 0. If in case if it is detecting hand, what happens, it is returning 1. You can see. Fine. And this is a message, so this is a method which is used to detect the objects. Fine. So this is a function which is used to draw the safe lines. It might be blue line or red line, you can see. So again, as I told, no, when it comes to this function, it is taking an argument, something like the orientation. Fine. So that is nothing but bt, bottom to top, top to bottom, left to right, right to left. So these things, so all this orientation, you can just adjust these things according to the requirement. You can just change the orientation based upon the machine, how it is arranged in the industry, in the location. Okay. So this function is nothing but it is drawing the image on the box on the image. Fine. And again, this particularly this model has been designed so it detects whether you're having a bare hand or you're wearing a gloves on hand. It can detect. So we can just so it's a robust model. Fine. mm. So now let me just show you a few things. Fine. So as I told, no, so once we just done with this entire execution, what happens, this what is the end point, what is the end result. So you'll be getting two lists. First thing is what is the number of times your hands has been detected, as well as how many times you're crossing the border. It might be blue border, it might be red border, those things. So the end result is stored in a CSV file. So I'll just show you this thing. You can see this is a CSV file. So this is an Excel file. Just a minute, let me open and show it to you. Okay. So as you can see, I have been opened that. Okay. Fine. So I have been opened this thing. You can see. So this is the result. So I'll be getting a serial number, the date, so number of times, hand detected, so number of times hand crossed the line. Fine. So this is where the end result will be getting. So you can just treat it as a log file. So this is a function which is generating some data. That data, that is save data function, is generating it is creating and opening a result.xls file, and it is feeding this data. It is writing the data. You can see. So it is counting the number of times it is detected, and it is adding it. Fine. So now what I'll do, I'll just make an arrangement for a live demo. So as you can see, guys, my project setup is ready, and if I'm just showing my hands here, you can just see it is identifying my hands. So on top of this rectangular boxes, I'm getting like the confidence rate as well, and it is able to detect these two hands. Fine. So the moment once I'm just see, we are having like two borders. One is blue line as well as red line. So red line is indicating that the first boundary which we don't want it to cross your hands, and the blue line is nothing but it's a final. So since I'm not having any shredder machine, so, so you can just see I'm not having any shredder machine, so I'm just uh, showcasing my table. Just imagine the white table is a shredder machine. So the moment once I'm just crossing this line, I hope you can see the warning message. I'm getting another. Fine. So let me just demonstrate something. Like I'll be taking an object, so you can see. So if I'm keeping my object also, it is able to detect my hands. Fine. Fine. So the moment once I'm just entering the this thing, so it is giving a warning message. So I'll just take this white paper. You can see. So I'm getting a warning message. Fine. So here, so I'll just show you something. So I'll just cross this device. So I'm just crossing this device on the red border. I'm not getting any warning. Again, I'm just crossing this device. I'm not getting any border. The moment once I'm entering my hands, I'm getting the warning. So you can just see. So, so this is a small demonstration about my project. So I hope you enjoyed this. Fine. So guys, as you can see in my demo, right? So it's a really interesting and amazing project. So it is only detecting the hands, so not the objects. Fine. And whenever I'm just crossing my hand over the red line as well as blue line, it is able to alert. It is able to trigger an alert sound. Fine. And once the trigger sound, or else if I'm moving my hand, it is if my hand is crossing the red line, what happens? My entire shredder machine is shutting down. Fine. And fine guys, so I hope you have enjoyed this session, and you have got complete intuition of the entire project, and the main intention is nothing but in order to increase the security for the industrial user workers. Fine. uh, so thank you guys, and see you in the next video. Bye bye, take care.